Hi, I'm Jeff Clark Jr., and this is Art and Underdogs. Today I'm joined by Joshua Nelson, owner and acting coach of LaGuardia Acting Studio, located in Rockaway, New Jersey. Not only is Josh a great actor and acting coach, but he's also a writer, a director, and filmmaker. His acting studio is the only one, to my knowledge, that shoots feature length films where he writes parts for his students, gets them IMDb credit, and those same films get distributed worldwide on platforms like Amazon and Tubi. On top of that, Josh creates short films, teen films, and has also written original plays that are performed by his students in community theater. Here's a clip from his latest film, Dating Horror Stories. Josh, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It is my pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dating Horror Stories?
Sure. So, Dating Horror Stories is an anthology. It's three different mini stories, all basically wrapped around the same concept of literally that dating horror stories. It's a term that is so frequently used by people when they talk about bad dates they were on. And I remember thinking, God, that's the best title for a movie. I wonder how many movies were titled Dating Horror Stories. And I looked and there was none. Like there's episodes of TV shows that are entitled Dating Horror Stories, but there wasn't a movie. And I thought, come on, it's the perfect title for a horror movie. So I got the title first. And then I just thought of like three really interesting, kind of twisted little tales to wrap it around.
So, do you have any dating horror stories that inspired this?
I'm not sure that I have any that aren't dating horror stories. I've had some interesting dates. See, I'm, what's the word? Old. And I remember I used to do dating where you didn't see the person. There was no video. There was no apps. So you'd like place ads or you'd see someone's ad and not that I needed to do that, but I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to. It was kind of fun. And I was in a band at the time, and a lot of times the rock newspapers had their own personals. And so you're meeting people with the same musical taste, things like that. So you'd meet people solely based on their descriptions in an ad. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even describing themselves. They were just like, rocker, loves metal, let's hang out. And yeah, so there were some interesting meetups that didn't go great. So but none ended in blood and violence like they do in the film.
Yeah. Now you can kind of lie. You can use a headshot, right?
Yes, now you can
And
use a headshot,
from 10 years ago.
which is what I did. Which is what I did when I met my wife. I had my it was I met my wife on Match.com actually,
Okay.
and everyone has casual photos, and of course I put my headshot on, and yeah, so that's what she saw, and didn't think I looked like the headshot, but she still liked me, so that was good.
Well, that's yeah, it worked out. That's good.
Yeah,
I know someone, I won't name names, but I know someone who did the dating app thing and has a dating horror story. And so the girl shows up and she's probably like 200 pounds overweight from her photo. Like she's
right.
huge. And so he's like, all right, he's a really nice guy. So he was like, all right, I'll just, go through with it. It doesn't look like her, but I'll go through with it. So they went to the movies and she fell asleep and was snoring next to him during the movie.
Well, her appearance really doesn't matter at that point when you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
Yeah,
Pretty funny though. He's like, "Oh, not a movie fan. I guess it's not gonna match."
yeah, that's a shame.
um, but yeah, Dating Horror Stories, really crazy, crazy movie.
Yeah, it's fun though. I mean, they're dark, twisted tales, but there's like a dark comedy under them as well.
Yeah,
So I like it. I like my movies um, to be either gross or scary because somehow, but always with some sort of funny, dark, comedic thing underneath. I think they're digested better that way.
Got you. So you cast your acting students in your films. I was one of them.
Yeah.
Is it hard to write for all the different character types? Because everyone's so different, you know?
So, yes, there are 2 ways I go about this. Either I'll just have a class sign up for a film, and then I need to write for them, which it's good that I know them because I write to their strengths or their quirks or things of that nature. Um, I do have a group of actors, yourself included, where I'm extremely fortunate because you're extraordinarily versatile as well as very talented. So that opens up
Thank you.
anything for me. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can't give people like you. And then I have others where I have a set idea and I have to kind of put people in places because I
Yeah,
already have my idea. And while I teach people that actors can do anything, there are specific types that fit better in certain roles, either
for sure.
visually or just based on your acting range and your acting abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotta be a challenge for sure when you're writing.
It's a let me put it this way. I was talking to somebody today. They were asking me about getting a job at Jersey Mike's Subs. Okay,
Mhm.
so when I go to Jersey Mike's Subs, they don't even write the stuff down. They're like a number two and a number four, and like I see the other guys like making it, and they understand what it is, and I'm like, how did you even remember that? To me, that's a challenge.
It
I
is.
see people putting what do you put on a roof? Slate, tile,
Shingles. Shingles?
shingles. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the sun. That's
Yeah.
a challenge.
Yeah, it's true.
Writing, it can be a little difficult at times, but it's a lot easier than, like,
Yeah.
actual hard work.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say I'm not laying asphalt over here.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
seriously.
it's not as hard, but
Yeah.
it's mentally challenging though.
It's
Um,
mentally challenging, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't wanna be like, "Oh, it's such a struggle." Come on.
yeah.
There are people that
That's
their
true.
hands bleed after work. This I just have to be creative.
True, true. So how would you describe your writing process? Is it just chaos? Is it does he have a format? Like, what is it?
Everything in my life is chaos. So I'll tell you, I get, like, ideas. Um, Ideas will pop in my head, or I'll be driving and listening to music, and I'll get visuals, and
Mhm.
once I get the visual, I will just go with it. I used to just write at night. Everything I'd ever written was usually between midnight and 4 a.m. Then I got
Mm.
children and old, and now I fall asleep. So I have to fit it in when possible. Um, but it comes in bursts.
Mhm.
Um, I just have to sit down and start.
Yeah,
Very often for me, the hardest part is actually, I have the concept now. I got to start it on paper. Once I start it, I can move. But I have to
gotcha.
get ideas. I think getting ideas is the hardest part because I have a weird job. I write for a lot of my acting classes daily. No, teachers don't usually do that, but I do.
No.
It just helps me formulate the lessons I want, and it helps me find better material for the specific actors. So I've learned now to force creativity because I have to. Forcing creativity is dangerous because you risk the loss of creativity because
Yeah.
creativity is spontaneous and organic. And to force it, it's like forcing love. It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work. But with films, they have to come to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that, I get that. Have you ever written anything where you're like, "Why did I write that?"
Yes.
What
And
is that? Did that come from
yeah.
me? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Why would I say this? I would never write those lines. Who would put this in here? That character is so badly written. And then I'm like, oh, I wrote that. So yeah, it happens. It happens.
What made you wanna start writing, like, films and plays and
1000%. I had never had any intention of writing.
mm,
But whenever, as an actor, things got slow, I absolutely refused to be dormant. I you have to be very patient in this industry. You have to
yeah,
wait for the auditions and wait. And then when they come, they may come one, and then you're waiting for response and the next one. I couldn't do that. I was too gung ho
mm,
younger. So I decided I'm just going to write my own. And it started, I just wrote my own. one act off Broadway plays, and I would submit them to festivals so I could be in them. And then that's how it started. And then I thought, well, I want to do films too. So I said, can I write a film? Why not? And I wrote it specifically to have me in it. And the first 4 or 5 films that I wrote and created and produced and had distributed, I wrote as vehicles for myself. Only now do I only write for others. But it was
Gotcha.
everything was done as a way to, if no one's hiring me, I will hire me and I will
Mm,
create my own material.
that's smart. I'm going through that right now. It's
Mhm.
very slow, and I'm waiting around, and I'm kind of like twiddling my thumbs, trying to
Right.
figure out what to do,
It's very frustrating.
which is one of the reasons I make this podcast. It's like, what can
Well,
I do?
look, great things come from creative
Yeah,
frustration,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite film that you've made so far? That you wrote, directed? What's the one that stands out? Like, I'm proud of that
So
one.
of all the films I've ever made, um, my the one I'm most proud of is a film called Skinned Alive,
Okay.
which was originally titled Eat Your Heart Out because it's a zombie love story ish. And I thought Eat Your Heart Out was a very apropos title, but when Lionsgate got it, they were like, no, we'll call it Skinned Alive, even though no one gets skinned alive in the film. This was pre LaGuardia, so this is
Okay.
a film I cast.
Cool.
And I wrote and produced and acted in, and I absolutely love it. In fact, a part of dating horror stories was stolen from that a concept in that film. I thought it's okay to steal from
Ah,
myself.
yeah. Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah. Why not? Am I going to sue myself? I have no money. It's pointless.
So, Skinned Alive.
Skinned Alive.
Where can I see that? Where can we see that?
Uh, I believe Skinned Alive is on Amazon
Okay.
Prime. The DVD is for sale. Not that anyone buys DVDs. The trailer, the Skinned Alive trailer, won some like big trailer award, which
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
even know anything about that. Um, and they put it together. I didn't even put the trailer together. Someone at Lionsgate put it together. Yeah, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but it's a fun trailer. There's like a bunch of prostitutes and blood. It's very me. Um, but yeah, that would be the film that kind of just came out great, and it just worked for me, and I'm really proud of it.
Nice. Everyone go see Skinned Alive on Amazon. So let's talk about the school. Let's talk about your acting studio.
Cool.
Um, Tell us a little bit about it and why you named it LaGuardia.
So we were looking at a name for a school. And I'm like, I'm not calling it like, because I'm looking at some other schools and it's like the teacher's name. I'm not calling it the Joshua
Mm.
Nelson School of Acting. So we're thinking, my wife says, what about LaGuardia? And LaGuardia has two meanings for me. One, I went to the Fiorello LaGuardia High School of Performing Arts in New York,
Oh,
the famed
okay.
school. That's where I went. That's where I learned everything. That's where my teachers were. So I have a strong connection to LaGuardia. And whenever I would have to try to do something and not use my real name, I would use the name Johnny LaGuardia, which was a character in a film called
Okay.
Times Square. Tim Curry played. So Johnny LaGuardia was my sort of pseudonym when I didn't want people to know who I was. And since
Mm.
I had two LaGuardias, I'm like, hey, let's just call it LaGuardia Acting Studio. That's where that came from.
Ah, interesting.
We are a one of the few schools in New Jersey that is more film and TV based. A lot of schools are theater based. We are not theater based. We are film and TV based. We don't have a specific style, not like Meisner or Adler or Hagen. My training, all my teachers, they came from either very hardcore Stanislavski or Strasberg styles. I had a teacher who from Russia who worked with the descendants of Stanislavski, and I had a teacher, Anthony Abeson, in New York City, who worked directly with Lee Strasberg, the actor studio.
Hmm.
So that's all my training. And what I did was I took all of that knowledge and I mixed it with everything I learned from the world's greatest teacher, which is called the real world. All the stuff I learned on sets, on in TV shows, doing plays, working with big directors, working in the business, that knowledge is what I mixed in with the knowledge of acting that I had. Um, So there's definitely going to be schools with much better teachers as far as their knowledge of the art and the techniques. I'm decent at understanding all the different techniques, but it's not in my bones.
Mhm.
But what I do is I take that knowledge and I bring it with what they want in the real world. I am so embedded in the industry day to day, working with agents and managers and casting directors, dealing with my son's career, dealing with other people coaching from their agents, send them to me and I coach them for auditions. I
Yeah.
work with casting directors and workshops, both coasts. So I'm really embedded in the way the business is working and what people are looking for in the industry and for auditions. And I bring that real world knowledge in with what I teach. And I think that's one of the things that separates us. And we work with absolute beginners to advanced actors. We don't have
Yeah.
like an ongoing class. We offer very different things. Some classes are to get you out of your shell. Some classes are just a variety, a potpourri. Some classes are focused on like improv or
Yeah.
episodic TV work, or we're just going to do something so we could film you to get footage so you have it for your reels or for Actors Access. Everything's specific.
Yeah. And you have several comedians too in your classes, like
We do have
actual stand-up
we
comedians.
do have several stand-up comedians, and what's interesting is they're hysterical, all of them.
They are.
And I'm training them to make sure they can do drama well
Mhm.
because they're so used to being funny. In fact, I have one female comedian and she's wonderful, and she doesn't like doing drama because she can't hear reaction. So she feels weird
Ah,
doing dramatic scenes because she's used to hearing laughter. And when there's no sound, she gets in her head. So it's going to take a little more practice for her to to get out of her head and just live
right.
in the moment of the scene.
What's that saying, the difference between comedy and drama is the music? Is that the saying? I feel like I've heard that before.
I don't know. I know there's a very fine line between laughter and crying,
Yeah.
and I know that, in life there's a very fine line between what is very dramatic and what is laughable. Um, but
Yeah.
I feel it's imperative to teach people everything. Even if you're really strong at something, have your strengths, be phenomenal at one thing, but be really good at everything. You
Yeah.
have to be. You cannot have a weak link and try to make a living as an actor, I don't believe.
What made you wanna become an acting coach?
I can be honest, right?
Of course.
I never wanted to become an acting coach. I never dreamed of becoming an acting coach. I was going to be a professional actor. There was no doubt about that, or a
Yeah.
musician. I was in a band and I was an actor, and I was going to get one of those routes. One would help me with the other. But this is a very difficult business, and even though I've
Yeah.
had a lot of high highs and I've done some really wonderful things and worked with amazing people, it's a very hard business to make a substantial living at. And then something happened. Something changed me. Some call it a message from above. I call it having a child. And when you when you have a child and you have no income, it's difficult. And I had to grow up real quick, and I had to get a sustainable job to take care of my family. Soon I realized that working in an office was going to drive me insane. And then my wife was very, very supportive, and we sidetracked from that into me running workshops, acting workshops with agents, managers, casting directors, and that's how I made a living. That sort of moved to I need to find another job, and I'm really not good at anything. Like I've managed market research firms and things, but I'm not like good at anything other than this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it was my wife, thank God, who said, John Robert Powers, who are not an acting school, they were looking for a teacher part time, and I said, all right, I'll do it. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I went in and I was like, what have they done to you people? It looked like a containment camp in Auschwitz with the least talented people I've ever seen. But it wasn't their fault. They weren't being taught well. So they gave me a book and I basically threw the book out and I taught them myself. And I realized, oh, I know enough to teach people. And then when acting wasn't picking up, I just started doing that more. And then it was a hard realization. I was like, I don't want to be a teacher.
Mm.
those who can't do teach. Well, I want to do,
Yeah.
but it was too slow.
I've heard
I had
that.
a,
Yeah.
I had a second child. My family became my most important thing. Look, make no mistake. You can have a family and pursue acting, absolutely. But I was in a position where I chose at this stage to focus more on just sustaining my family. And then I started teaching, and then I sort of enjoyed it, even though I still didn't know what I was doing. I did enjoy it. And the more I did it, the more I'd see people growing and learning. And I thought, you got to be less selfish
Mm.
and be not just you be a star, help other people. And then I think it was a little life, a little God that was like, this is not the worst thing to help others get successful.
Yeah.
And it started getting easier. And I still don't see myself as a teacher, but I've now gotten into this groove more. And I have my own style of teaching, which some people call just being a moron, but people learn from it. Um, And now when actors book things, like when you told me like you booked Godfather of Harlem or Law and Order, I got really excited. I got really proud. And realized that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's okay too. So it slowly evolved over time to
Yeah.
where I'm good with it.
I love that story.
Thank you.
Well, so what do you like the most about being an acting coach? I mean, you may have just mentioned it. Seeing your students succeed and
Yeah, I mean, every time someone books something, I'm
Mhm.
happy. Every time I get that email and they're just like, "Hey, book this, book that,"
Mhm.
I get really excited. And just watching growth. Like I literally see actors who come from like they come in shy and nervous, and now I watch them and they're doing all these like raunchy things and they're being loud and like they're breaking out of their shell.
Yeah.
And I really do feel pride about it. And I see some of these actors in my class and I'm like very honestly, you don't need class. Like I don't want to say that because I have large phone bills, but they don't need class. They're so damn good. And
Yeah.
yes, even brilliant actors and actresses should train because you
Yes.
always need to keep that muscle strong. You always need to
Absolutely.
stay sharp. But I I just am like very impressed with with some people, and it's a really good feeling. And I think to myself, if given the opportunity, these people are going to get famous. I know it. And
Yeah.
then I can just be like, oh yeah, I taught him, I taught her, and I'm totally okay living vicariously through other people's fame. I'm okay with it.
No, that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Well, hopefully one day one of us will make you proud.
Yes, hurry up, please. I'm getting older. Hurry up.
So, so you were an actor
Yes.
before you taught acting.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the roles that you booked as an actor that you feel were very memorable that you can talk about?
So my very first role was on a sitcom way back in the late '80s. Uh, to this day, it was the greatest job I ever had. It's not a job. You show up, they feed you, you work for 3 hours, you laugh, they change lines, you laugh, they feed you, you go home, you get paid. It was the most extraordinary thing ever. Um, and it was just great,
Yeah.
to be on television and work with really wonderful actors. Um, and then I did a soap opera, which was also really fun. It was the soap opera where I realized people will constantly stop you in the street and ask for autographs. I was I went to wrestling at MSG and a female cop called me over and she was like, "You're on that show, right?" And I'm like, "Wow." It's like it was you getting noticed. Soap operas you get noticed all the time.
Wow.
Um,
Pretty cool.
yeah, it's really cool when you're on a date and someone asks for an autograph. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's over at that point.
Brownie points. Yeah.
Oh my god. But anyway, um, and then I did some small roles in films, and
Yeah.
then I didn't land any huge role in a huge film, which I wanted. I had small roles in some big films. And then I started doing bigger roles in indie films, indie horror films that I had nothing to do with. Um, uh, Zombies Anonymous and Strange Things Happen at Sundown. Like I had leads in these
Hmm.
films and I wasn't making any money, but I was really enjoying it. The
Yeah.
thing about acting, I've always loved it. And I tell actors now, if you don't enjoy the actual art and the actual process, don't do this as a business. Do it as a hobby because the business is too difficult
I
to
know.
do
Yeah.
something. It's too grueling to do something that you don't enjoy. It's not
True.
worth it. But I loved it. People now they're like, a short film, well, what does it pay? You know how many films I did for no pay? Just because I wanted to be on set, just because I tell everyone a bad day acting is better than a good day, anywhere else. I
Yeah.
loved it. I didn't care about the paychecks. I just wanted to work. I wanted footage and I wanted to be in things that I could go see. I make movies now. I'm just going to bitch for 1 second. I make
Go
movies,
for it.
features with a lot of my students. They don't even come to the screenings. They don't
Yeah.
come to the screenings. They don't come when they're in festivals. Every movie I've ever been in, I've been to every festival to support it. Plus, I wanted to see it and I wanted to see it in a theater with other
Yeah.
people.
Hmm.
I don't get that, and it kind of pisses me off when people don't support their own films at all. I don't understand it, but to me, it was such an enjoyable thing, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure the question you asked, and I'm sure I went off topic,
No,
but
you answered it.
okay, sorry.
Yeah, I wonder if I noticed that too. Some actors don't show up for their own work, to just to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like, maybe the actors who just aren't taking it as seriously. Obviously that's the case, but maybe they're
If you're not
just,
taking
or
it
maybe,
seriously, why are you doing it? I mean, are you doing it for
yeah,
fun? Well, isn't it fun to watch the finished product?
yeah, no, I see, I totally see where you're coming from.
Now,
I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes and why they wouldn't want to. You know what I
there
mean?
are actors that I've experienced in the past and some at LaGuardia who are extraordinarily uncomfortable watching themselves on a screen.
Yeah,
Like one act, like Matt, who's in Dating Horror Stories. Matt's a great actor. Matt, it's like pulling teeth to get him to watch himself. He just is uncomfortable watching himself. I don't know why. He's so
yeah,
good. So there's that. But then there's something else where people just like don't feel it's that important, but it is. And when
it
I
is.
see at
Yeah,
other festivals, I see other films, they've got like 30 people there, every cast, every crew.
hmm,
So it pisses me off when people don't support their own films.
yeah. Come on,
And
guys,
I,
get to the damn film. Let's go.
hello? Yes, yes.
So do you like acting or coaching better?
I loved acting.
Hmm.
It's a totally different world. But, I have to sometimes ask myself, like, okay, I ended up here. I had a dream. It didn't come true the way I'd imagined it. I
Hmm.
believe everything is for a reason. And I've had to ask myself a lot, what happened here? And then I had to realize all the experience I had, all the learning, all the enjoyment, all the ups and downs, there was a lot of downs, was my training to train others. A lot of people, they study and they study and then they teach. They study, they teach.
Yeah,
I lived in the real world for many, many years. I've been on all levels of set from multi-millions to student films, working with great people, working with horrible people. And all of that training is invaluable because now I spread that to my students and also to my kids when they're acting, my son, like who knows the industry better to navigate him than me.
yeah,
So I had to sort of take my ego out, which is always a good thing in the end, and say, this knowledge you had was not for you, but to help others. And for egotistical people, like I've always been in my whole life, it's hard to put others ahead of you. But I think when you have family and you start to realize other people are just as important, or if not
yeah.
more important, then you realize there's other ways of being successful.
Absolutely.
I'd probably
Yeah.
drop the school in a heartbeat to be the lead in a TV show, but I shouldn't say that out loud. You know. Yeah.
um. So I have some curveballs for you here.
Yes, sir. Go.
I polled questions from your students, and
Ugh.
I'm gonna ask you a couple questions
My
here.
students.
And if you don't want to answer them, just say pass or whatever you want to say. All right.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
But these are some questions that your students are
Are,
interested
are they
in.
anonymous, or will you tell me their
Anonymous,
name?
completely anonymous.
Yeah, of
I
course.
wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do
All
that
right.
to them. All
Okay.
right, so here we go. What are some things you like and dislike about the entertainment business?
Uh,
Your student? No, just kidding.
okay. Like, okay, it's very
These
simple.
questions.
It's very simple. So it's normally a dream that people have of being successful. I spent my whole life imagining and fantasizing about being on television, being in the movies. I used to lie and say I was going to be on Love Boat and Fantasy Island. I would tell kids in school. I wasn't acting. To start to achieve it, to be on a set, to book a role, uh, to book a big role, to be opposite, working opposite famous people. It is literally a dream come true, and it is a high like I can't tell you. I tell people, for all the depression of rejection, nothing's happening, nothing that, then you book something and it is like shooting up. It is such a high. It is an incredible high. And working, being on sets, being amongst celebrities that you've watched growing up, uh, it, it compared to nothing for me. There was
Hmm.
nothing that compared to that joy. Going to a video store when there were video stores. There's my movie. Hey, I'm on the cover here. Like,
Yeah,
it's an extraordinary feeling. But for that one feeling, there is tons of rejection. Rejection when you know you did well and you can't fathom what happened. Rejection when you screw up the audition and then you got to deal with the fact that, oh, you messed this up. Nothing happening, not knowing what to do. How many times can they tell you get new headshots? Like,
it's true.
you just there's so many downs and not nearly as many ups for the majority of actors. That makes it a very difficult world. Also, people
Hmm.
are fake as hell.
Yeah.
I knew very some actors starting out that before they were anyone, they were wonderful. And as soon as they started to get a name, they totally changed.
Mm.
Um, it's crazy. And then
Yeah.
I knew people the opposite who stayed wonderful. I'll just name drop real quick, like Reno Wilson. I knew him as Roy Wilson. Now he's Reno Wilson. He's on Mike and Molly. This guy worked. He got on a TV show. He was great. I hadn't talked to him like 30 years, 20 years. I needed a favor from him. He was there like that. Really salt of the earth, great people who don't change. So I don't want to make it seem like everybody does,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um, it, it's such a fickle business. There's no consistency. There's no sense. No sense is the only thing that makes sense in this industry. People are like, this isn't fair. I don't understand that. You never will.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees. There's no logic. That is your industry.
Wow.
That makes it hard. It's a long answer.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
that's great information. Um. All right. Next curveball.
I'll be more succinct. Go on.
That's all good. Um. Used to play in a band. What was the name of that band, and what instrument did you play?
Okay, so there was a few. The first band was called Cleavage. And people were always disappointed because they thought it was going to be four chicks.
Mm.
And it was four guys with really long hair, but still. So I
Did you
loved,
did you show cleavage at least?
I did. Um, so there was Cleavage, and I was the bass player and co-lead singer because I'm a huge Kiss fan. So of course
Okay.
I had to be in a band where there was the rhythm guitarist sang and the bassist sang, just like Kiss. So I did that, and then we went from Cleavage to New York's Finest. New York's Finest was
Okay.
my real band where we dressed like cops. We were four guys, wear police outfits, but with really long hair, and you know, it was a. I mean, people either loved us, like this is
Mm.
the coolest thing ever, or it was like you village people rip offs, like they didn't like it.
Yeah, it's
But
very theatrical. Yeah.
it's very theatrical.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved that band. And again, I was the bassist and co-lead singer. Those were my two bands, Cleavage and New York's Finest.
All right. Next
And I
question.
miss playing in those bands every day.
Do you still play at home? You still play
No,
bass?
it's gonna be so lame, but once I cut my hair, I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. It was like the
Ooh,
Samson thing, yeah. I
ooh.
mean, I know even Metallica cut their hair, but for me, all the power of metal was in the hair, and once it was cut, the metal just wasn't there.
There's a movie right there. There's a story there. I
Yeah.
can see. I could see a film. Uh,
Yeah, I think it's in the Bible, but anyway.
yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Um, so, what inspired you to transition from music to acting?
So I always did both because
Oh,
to
okay.
me, I had to perform and I needed to be on stage. So I was pursuing acting when I discovered Kiss later in life, in my high school years, and Kiss inspired me to be in a band, and I was able to do both. And for a while, I did both. I was a long-haired actor who was doing the band, and I was like this: either the band is going to get famous and it's going to help my acting career, or my acting career is going to take off and help the band. I'm here with you, so it didn't. Neither happened, but
I
that
didn't want to
was the
say.
goal.
I
No,
didn't
no,
want to
that was
say.
no. I'm well aware.
All right,
So
here we
that
go.
was the goal.
Couple more left from
Yeah,
students.
please.
Are you related to the boxer Chuck Wepner?
Spiritually. So Chuck Wepner was a club fighter that my grandfather, Al Braverman, managed and trained and discovered, and and my grandfather brought him up into a fight with Muhammad Ali. That was one of the most covered fights in history. Made the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Saw that film.
Yep. And that story, Sylvester Stallone watched and inspired Rocky. So Chuck Wepner, my grandfather's fighter, was the basis for Rocky Balboa, and Mickey, his trainer, was based off my grandfather.
Wow,
And so I'm not related to Chuck, but Chuck has been sort of part of our family since I was a little tiny boy. Yeah,
very cool.
yeah,
You played Sheldon in the TV series Roomies with
correct,
Burt Young and Cory Haim.
correct.
What was it like working with them?
Bird is a phenomenal actor. Was he passed recently? And man, Bird has such a unique style, and everyone knows him from the Rocky movies. But Bert's done a lot of things. Bert's a tremendous actor. Even if you saw one of his last roles when he did an episode of Sopranos, he
Yes,
was so good.
I remember that
Um,
episode.
yeah, Bert was a dream to work with. Pleasure all around. Corey Haim was young and um, uh, Corey was very unloved. Corey, when I met him and was working with him, his parents were in a custody battle, not for him, but for who took his money.
Mm,
And it was a weird time to be around him. I caught him pre-drug days, and he was very nice, no attitude, good guy, really sad story.
yeah,
A lot of bad Hollywood path, the worst Hollywood path a kid can go down. He went down, which I believe was because his parents were not there for him, which is very sad.
yeah.
But it was a great pleasure working with both of them, and an extraordinary way to break into the business.
Last question. So, student question.
Mhm.
So, you played Willie in the film Sea of Love, starring Al Pacino.
Yeah,
Did you get to work with Al Pacino? And if so, what was running through your head?
yeah. So you have to understand, my inspiration for becoming an actor started in 1979 when I saw a film called And Justice for All. I must have been 10 or 11 years old. And I saw that film and I just said, that's all I want to do with my life. Now, at the time, he played a lawyer in the film. And I said, wait, do I want to be a lawyer or an actor? I wanted to be an actor. And I've been obsessed with Al Pacino ever since. So it was some godly fate that my very first film role would be in a scene opposite Al Pacino.
Wow.
Absolutely unfathomable that my first role is in this movie. And there was a lot of small roles, but in a scene with Al.
Yeah.
So it was like I think somewhere down the line they knew I wasn't going to make it as a successful actor. So they're like, let's give him the dream quick. And so that he can live the rest of his life.
Man,
But yes, I got to work with him, and it was
bucket list, right? Yeah,
beyond bucket list.
yeah,
I just wish I could have appreciated it more. I was so in shock and so nervous.
that's amazing.
But yeah,
Yeah, good story.
it was great.
All right, and no more student questions. That's it. So thank you for answering
Those
those.
weren't so bad. I was expecting
Yeah,
really.
I think I left a couple out. Is
Okay,
that one? I weeded through them.
thanks.
Um, but yeah, so let's move on to the underdog segment
Sure.
and just get to know you a little bit more. So where did you grow up?
I grew up underdog, right? Okay, so I'll be honest. I grew up um, with a uh, single parent, just my mom, in the Bronx, New York. I am born and raised in the Bronx my whole life. Um, the Bronx is the Bronx, you know. There's a rich part of the Bronx called Riverdale that they don't even call the Bronx. They call it Riverdale.
Yeah.
But no, I grew up in the Bronx near Fordham Road in the Bronx. I grew up in a very Italian Irish section, and
Mm.
then outside that, everyone was Puerto Rican or Dominican. And like I would walk to Fordham Road to go to see horror movies at these movie theaters that were like old palaces but had become like run down, like the Arcade Fordham and the Louis Paradise. And I'd be sitting in that the the only white kid in that theater watching these like sick twisted horror movies, which thank God because it got me where I am today. um and that was it was, I lived in an
Yeah,
apartment. Like I didn't have a house until I was like in my 30s, so I lived with just my mom, um near my grandparents in the Bronx.
got you. What was high school like? You went to LaGuardia, so
Yeah, so I went to the local like junior high and the local elementary school, and the Bronx not a great area. Um, and if I was going to the high school there, quite honestly, I did not know I don't know where my future would be. I have no idea because you don't go to Bronx high schools usually and then pursue an acting career. It just doesn't usually go that way. So my grandmother found out about this school called Performing Arts. We saw the movie Fame, the
mm,
original, not that crap remake.
right.
And I said, I think I can do that. No acting knowledge, no acting ability. And literally a very poor Bronx kid. Um, and I got that audition. We went down to New York and I got that audition and they accepted me. You can't just go there. You
Wow.
need to audition and get in. And it was one of the highlights of my life and it changed everything.
Do you remember what audition you used? Like what scene?
Yeah, it was a monologue called Dark at Dark at the Top of the Stairs, I think. It was about a very quiet, like innocent, introverted boy. And I remember using that one, not realizing it was also in the film. So it was a terrible idea. They did the monologue in the movie. I didn't realize that. I just chose it.
Ah,
So it was a terrible idea. It was so overused, like singing Annie at a child's musical theater
got you.
audition. That and another one. And I don't remember the other one, but it was ludicrous. And they said, okay, when you come for your callback, do the other one. And then at that callback, they say, can you do it as an animal? Which is why I make all my students do it and they
I
all
was
hate it.
just gonna say
They
you
hate
haven't.
it, but I
Yeah.
did it. And I did, and did it as a snake, and they were like, "Oh, this kid's got some balls."
Damn it.
Um,
Where's the footage of that? I
yeah.
wish we could see that.
So that was that. So yeah, now
Cool.
you have to understand, like, I was I grew up with candles all over my house. Do you know
Mm,
why? Not because I was spiritual, not because I used to meditate, but because our electricity was shut off a lot.
mm.
That was it. We had no income. Electricity was shut off a lot. So I grew up with candles, or sometimes we drill a hole and someone in another apartment would let us put an extension cord through and use their
Wow.
electricity.
Yeah.
So getting into that school and subsequently booking my first job literally pulled me out of a potentially bad situation. The kids where I grew up, for the most part, don't make it out,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I can relate to that.
And
Yeah.
that wasn't me. I wasn't like that kind of street kid. I my I had very, very loving parents, and
That's good.
they did the best they could for me, but there's not
Yeah.
a lot of ways out financially, and acting was the way. It's the one
Wow.
thing that got me out.
What
Yeah.
was your first job? You said you booked your first
So,
job?
okay, so the very, very first thing I did was they got people in the school to be part of a a PSA for birth control, and I'm in high school, I'm 17, my line was, "We only did it once." That was my very first acting job. Then, uh, we had no money, school was getting hard, life was getting hard.
Mm.
I remember being at the Con Edison's an electric company there, and
Yeah.
going to try to make payment plans in person. There was no internet, and trying to make payment plans to keep my lights on. And then maybe 3 to 4 weeks later, they said, "Josh, you booked roomies." I
Wow.
booked that TV show, and that was it, and 2 weeks later, I was on a plane out to LA and
Man,
sending checks back home to pay all the bills, and it literally happened like that. Like, if I wrote it, I wouldn't believe it, but that was
that's
truly, I was saved there.
man, that
Yeah.
is a great story.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I couldn't even believe it. Yeah.
Damn.
And then my high school said, "If you take the job, we're throwing you out." I said, "Excuse me?" They're like, I was in my senior year. They were like, "If you don't graduate senior year before you take a professional job, you're not graduating with a drama diploma." And I was like, "Mm-hmm. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye. I'm going to turn down this opportunity to do 3 more months." But anyway,
Jeez.
yeah, that's all right.
Come on,
So I have a
LaGuardia.
diploma from LaGuardia, but I don't have the stamp from the drama department, even though I spent all my years there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks. Freaking
Yeah.
LaGuardia.
I know. Well, it's all right.
Um, so how did you finish school then? I mean, after roomies?
So, okay, so what happens is when you go out, when you're on set, they have a tutor. They have a tutor for you. And
Okay,
basically,
yeah.
they flew my tutor to New York. She met with all my teachers, who were all very supportive. And so I would do my work there, 3 hours a day on set. You have to do school. So I would work, school, work, school, work, school. Um, and that was it. And I did really well. And then I went back at the end of senior year for like 2 months. And I would literally go to school, do my academics, and then when everyone else went to drama, I went home. I went home because they were like, they didn't want me, and I was like, "Screw you."
Hmm.
So that was crazy. That
Yeah.
was crazy. But yeah, that's what happened. So I graduated. I was at graduation. I just had I had broken up with the drama department.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, screw
yeah,
'em. You don't need
yeah.
them.
Correct. Correct.
Um, wow, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from growing up like that, like struggling, in the Bronx and, just trying to keep the lights on with your family and what did you learn from all that stuff you went through?
I learned and still have to continue to learn true appreciation. Um, now when there's like a blackout or it rains, the power goes out, everyone freaks out. Um, that was way of life sometimes. Um, I think I learned later in life how much I appreciated how much my family did for me. Back then, how supportive they were of me, because I know a lot of people, they say they want to be an actor. Nobody wants to support that, which I understand. It's not a there's no money potentially ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my family supported it. And I learned that while I don't want my kids to follow in these footsteps because I want them to have money, I learned you got to support dreams,
Yeah.
as mine were supportive, which is why I'm good for acting students, because when people come to me with a dream, I'm there.
You really
Even if I
are.
don't, even if I don't think they're going to make it, I will support them, and I will either talk them through it or tell them to hold on and keep trying, because you never know.
No, you really are.
So I think I
Yeah.
learned that, the tenacity,
Yeah.
and I grew up, I had no siblings, and so I was alone a lot. I watched tons of movies, and I learned that think I learned that about creativity.
Mhm.
You know, w- we didn't have sports teams in my schools in or I wasn't on them in the Bronx. Like our playgrounds were like parking lots. Or
Yeah.
we used to play tag on the roof of a church, um, climbing fences. That's what we did. Every sport I did in growing up was with a Spalding ball, man. That was it.
Yeah.
Handball, stickball, punch ball. So you learn to be creative without having much. You learn to appreciate without having a lot.
Yeah. That
Um,
makes sense.
and yeah, I think that's what I learned. You have to
Man.
make do when you don't have a lot, and your mind is limitless.
Yeah, it truly is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it taught you to also help other people, and that's I feel like you're meant to be a coach because you're so good at it. I mean, you've helped me a lot,
Well,
and I appreciate you for that.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
And thank you so much for sharing that story again.
Of course,
Appreciate it.
of course.
All right, so let's move on to something a little more fun. To close out our Art and Underdogs episode, I usually do a quick questions game.
Cool.
Um, you mentioned the Actor Studio, and I'm sure you know the TV show that was on Bravo inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton. So
Yes,
I kind of got this from him because I was a fan of that show.
that's okay because he got it from someone else.
There you go.
Yeah.
We all borrow from each other, right?
Yes.
So it's basically rapid fire questions. You can speak on them if you want or extend your answers, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And
Okay.
there's 10 questions, so we'll just get through them real quick.
Okay.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite film?
Times Square.
Who's your favorite actor or actress?
Al Pacino, hands down. But I just want to do a quick shout out to Mikey Madsen from Honora, who's maybe one of the most extraordinary talents I've ever seen.
Love it. You see, I mouthed that when you said Al Pacino. I knew you were gonna
Yeah,
say that.
duh, duh.
All right, this is a fun one right here. If you had to pick one song that played every time you walked into a room, what would it be?
What? If I had to pick one song that played every time I walked into a room,
Yeah,
what
would it
would
be
it
like
be?
a badass song?
Oh,
Would it be like a
no,
slow
no,
song?
no, it's easy. All Hell's Breaking Loose by Kiss. It's one of the coolest songs I've ever heard. And it's just got this cool like sound to it. And if
Yeah,
everywhere I walked, that song was playing, it would be the most badass thing ever.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
What's your favorite sound?
The laughter of my son Roman. When he laughs a lot, like where he can't stop, it is the most intoxicating sound I've ever heard. And I could be miserable, depressed, angry, and hearing that brightens everything.
What's your favorite smell?
I despise smelling anything. Nothing. I don't like smells. I don't like anything that smells. Like, like I like
Pez. Pez.
Pez. I like the way Pez smells.
What's your favorite meal? Like if you had to eat one meal forever, what would it
Come
be?
on. First of all, I don't like the word meal either. I'm not a food person. I like a very, very, very well done steak. Like the kind when they're
Mm.
like, "Oh, we're so sorry we ruined it." That's how I like it.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite curse word?
I like fuckface a lot. Yeah, because
I noticed that.
yeah, because it's just very it just flows. Hey, fuckface, come here.
Yeah, yeah.
Fuckface works. Yeah.
Totally Josh Nelson right
And
there.
I unfortunately do curse a lot in when I teach. I apologize.
Hey, we need to get that thick skin, right? Look,
Yes,
it's
yes,
okay.
yes.
Um, who do you look up to?
I have always looked up to my grandfather, everything he's ever taught me, and he is really the reason I don't drink. I never drank. I never smoked. I never took a drug in my life. People are like, "You were in a band for 15 years and you didn't
Right.
drink?" I never took a drink. He instilled that in me, um, and I've always tried to honor that in him.
Who's someone you like to say thank you to?
Uh, I mean, I'd like to. First, the first person I always think is my wife, because she's allowed me to stay creative and on this creative path since I met her, and nothing I've done has really made money. And she's always stuck with me through it. She could have said, "Could you get a real job, maybe?" Um, but no. I stayed creative. I think that it would be my go-to, because she's
Yeah.
been able to help me withstand the transition of having a life different than I had imagined, which can
Mhm.
be very off-putting if you getting older and you're like, wait a minute, what happened to my career? And she helped me transition into, there are greater joys in life than your own needs and wants.
Last question.
Sir.
If you get to heaven and they open the gates, what would you like to hear God say to you?
Cut, give you some notes. Back to one. Let's do it again.
Josh, thank you so much for being here
Thank you,
and
Jeff.
sharing your story.
Oh, it's
Um,
been my pleasure.
how can people get in touch with you, take some acting classes?
So it's LaGuardia Acting Studio, LaGuardiaActing.com. It is literally for beginners who have never had any experience, to people with a little experience, to people with a lot of experience. We have people that don't want to necessarily become actors, but want to get better at public speaking, or they have to make presentations and they're nervous. Um, and all the people that like dreamed of being an actor, but don't dare tell anyone. They can't tell their family or their friends because they don't want to be ridiculed. Like, come here and I will be your support system and I will show you that it's okay. LaGuardiaActing.com. Yeah.
All right. We just want to squeeze this in here. So
Yeah.
you made a movie recently called Aware of the Wolf.
Yes.
So can you
Thank
tell
you.
people where to watch that? And
Yes, Aware of the Wolf. It's, sort of a self-help horror film. Um, I I really like it. It's gotten a couple of bad reviews, but F that. Um, but it's gotten some really good reviews as well. It had been on streaming for a long time. It's on Tubi, but they just released the Blu-ray DVD of it, which is a good sign. I know a lot of people don't buy DVDs anymore. I personally am fighting to keep physical media alive. My son buys every 4K DVD that he can get his hands on. Um, I love physical media. I don't want it to go away. I know I sound old and people are like, DVD, but yeah, but it's available on Tubi. It's available on streaming on Amazon. The DVD is available, and it's a really, I think it's just a really fun film. Jeff, you do a phenomenal role in it as well.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, vinyl's coming back, right? You heard about this?
Vinyl's back.
So
It's been
so
back.
so maybe DVDs will make a comeback at some point. You never know.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's hope.
All
Let's
right,
hope.
Josh. Thank you so much.
Jeff, thank you. It has been my absolute pleasure.
This has been an Art and Underdogs episode with the one and only Joshua Nelson. We'll see you guys next time.